The Tamiflu story is one of the most instructive and deeply unsettling examples of how pharmaceutical companies can distort evidence, manipulate public health policy, and generate enormous profits from fear, particularly during times of crisis. Marketed as a crucial defense against influenza outbreaks, Roche's antiviral drug Tamiflu, oseltamivir, was promoted as not just a treatment to shorten the flu, but a drug that could reduce complications, hospitalizations, and even deaths. Governments around the world bought into this promise. But over time, a much more troubling picture emerged, one in which key clinical trial data had been withheld or misrepresented, and the benefits of the drug had been significantly overstated. At the heart of this controversy was Roche's refusal, for years, to release all of its clinical trial data for independent scrutiny. What little was available to regulators and researchers came largely in the form of industry-sponsored publications and heavily edited summaries. This concealment persisted even as nations, particularly during the 2009 H1N1 influenza pandemic, rushed to stockpile Tamiflu. Governments around the world, under the belief that Tamiflu could substantially mitigate the threat of a deadly pandemic, spent billions of taxpayer dollars acquiring it in bulk. The United States alone spent over $1.5 billion on stockpiles. The United Kingdom shelled out over £600 million. But when independent researchers, including members of the Cochrane Collaboration and investigative teams from the BMJ, finally forced access to more complete trial data through years of pressure, what they found was stunning. Tamiflu's ability to reduce the duration of symptoms was modest, less than a day on average. There was no solid evidence that it reduced hospitalizations, serious complications like pneumonia, or influenza-related deaths. The drug also had a not insignificant side effect profile, including nausea, vomiting, headaches, and psychiatric disturbances in some patients. In short, the drug's benefits had been hyped far beyond what the data could justify. This wasn't just about clinical nuance. It was about billions of dollars wasted based on incomplete or misleading information. It was about national pandemic preparedness plans that had been built around a pharmaceutical illusion. And it was about the credibility of global public health systems being compromised by their reliance on industry data rather than independent verification. What makes the Tamiflu saga particularly alarming is how it exploited the inherent anxiety surrounding infectious disease. Influenza outbreaks and the looming specter of pandemics create fertile ground for panic and urgency, which pharmaceutical companies can leverage for rapid procurement deals and emergency authorizations. Roche used this fear to drive demand, lobbying aggressively and promoting the idea that Tamiflu was not just helpful but essential. And in the absence of transparency, policymakers had little choice but to accept those claims at face value. There were no large-scale fatalities directly caused by Tamiflu, and the drug did offer limited symptom relief in certain cases. But this only makes the scandal more insidious. It wasn't a catastrophic failure of safety, it was a systemic failure of trust, oversight, and scientific integrity. It was a case where governments acted in good faith, the public followed medical advice, and yet the evidence base was quietly manipulated behind closed doors for financial gain. The implications extend far beyond one drug. Tamiflu became a case study in how weak regulatory frameworks, corporate opacity, and emergency pressures can combine to override science. It raised hard questions about how we approve drugs, how we build pandemic stockpiles, and how vulnerable we are to information asymmetry in times of fear. To this day, Roche has never fully acknowledged any wrongdoing, and Tamiflu remains available for prescription. But the damage to public trust, both in pharmaceutical companies and in the health institutions that rely on them, may prove far more enduring than the temporary benefit the drug ever offered. The Tamiflu debacle stands as a stark warning that in the world of medicine, even a modest lie, repeated under the right circumstances, can be worth billions. And that when profit comes before transparency, it is the public, not the company, that ultimately pays the price.